I suddenly shifted into an omega in the dorm and ended up in bed with my childhood crush. The next day, he asked with a dark expression, "Who was that estrus omega last night?" Seeing Forrest's disgusted face, I instinctively lied. How should I know? It couldn't have been me, right? You know I'm a beta. I forced a smile, but my fists were clenched tight inside my sleeves. How could I have forgotten that Forrest hated omegas the most? To hide my transformation, I started actively avoiding him. I declined his invitations to go along. I got up as early as possible in the morning and stayed out all night. Watching Forrest's expression grow increasingly dark, my heart raced. I thought I'd slipped up, so I immediately asked the dorm supervisor to let me move out. But just as I stepped outside, Forrest, who should have been in class, appeared behind me like a ghost, his tall figure looming over me. "What did I do wrong that made you keep avoiding me?" Before dawn, I quietly slipped out of bed. Blushing, I grabbed my underwear and darted into the bathroom. I turned the water to a trickle and glared at a white stain on my underwear. Embarrassed and frustrated. It was strange. I'd long passed puberty. So why was I having dreams like this lately? "You're washing your underwear?" I spun around in shock and instinctively tried to hide it behind me. But the one from my erotic dream caught me in the act. He grabbed my waist with one hand, squinting down at me from his height. "You've got some unmet needs." "Huh?" Forrest smiled brightly and reached into the soapy basin, starting to wash the underwear casually. "Your mother entrusted you to me, so I have to take good care of you. What if he doesn't let me in the house?" I covered my face, nearly burning with embarrassment. I warned myself fiercely not to overthink, because Forrest had never crossed any boundaries with me. He could make these jokes without restraint. I watched him wash, humming happily to himself. "There, your hands shouldn't touch the detergent. From now on, leave these little things to me." My hands were prone to allergies, and since we were in the same dorm, Forrest had taken over all the chores on his own initiative. No one would have guessed it. This alpha, so composed and admired in public, was unexpectedly considerate behind the scenes. Forrest and I had grown up together. We'd seen each other in diapers. We knew each other inside out. But when, after puberty, I first whispered Forrest's name while releasing myself, I realized my feelings had already changed. I, Griffin, had fallen for my childhood crush. Unable to face the alpha washing that tiny piece of cloth, I forced myself to change the subject. "Forrest, did you put on cologne?" It was strange. I had recently been able to faintly smell something from him. If I didn't know I was a beta who couldn't sense pheromones, I might have thought I'd transformed. I didn't. Probably just the shower gel, he said, lifting his arm to sniff. "But my heat cycle is coming up soon." I nodded, thinking nothing of it. But that night, I lay burning on Forrest's bed, curling up like a shrimp, unconsciously inhaling the scent of the bed beneath me. Yet my body felt increasingly wrong. I couldn't believe it. I reached back and felt something wet and slippery. The dorm was already incredibly fragrant. Only then did it hit me. The scent I'd been smelling before was Forrest's pheromones. So I had shifted? My mind was a complete mess. I knew I shouldn't be doing this, but my body wouldn't listen. I trembled on Forrest's bed, neck thrown back. And still, it wasn't enough. I was nearly in tears, desperate. My awareness blurred further. When the door opened, our pheromones collided instantly, filling the room with an almost explosive scent. What followed was chaos. Shame, pain, and an indescribable pleasure mixed together, making me shiver and cry uncontrollably. When I opened my eyes, I saw Forrest completely naked beside me, and I almost lost my mind. Ignoring the wetness running down my legs, I hastily threw on clothes and limped out of the dorm. "Enzo, thank you." I buttoned up my shirt and forced a small smile at the omega leaning against the door. After rushing out of the dorm in a panic, I realized just how reckless I had been. Running around campus while dripping with pheromones was definitely not a wise move. Luckily, I ran into Enzo, and he brought me back home. He not only gave me his own omega inhibitor, but also prepared a full set of fresh clothes for me. "Griffin, don't thank me, and don't try to put me on your good person list either." Enzo pressed a hand to his forehead, hesitating. before finally blurting out, "He finally slept with you, didn't he?" I almost spit out the water in my mouth, instinctively covering up. "I didn't." Enzo pinched the bridge of his nose, looking utterly exasperated. "Come on. Your whole scent is drenched in him." "Sorry," I muttered, my face blazing red. "But can you please keep this from Forrest?" Enzo gave me a blank, questioning look. "Why would I hide it? Does he not know he slept with you?" I froze and let out a bitter smile, lowering my gaze. "Yeah, he doesn't remember." I tried to sound casual as I showed Enzo my phone. There were several missed calls from Forrest. Half an hour ago. Seeing Forrest's call had sent my heart racing with fear and panic, but also a tiny spark of hope. After all, we had so many years of friendship. What if, just what if, Forrest didn't mind that I was an Omega? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm, and nervously answered the call. But his words hit me like a bucket of cold water. "You didn't return to the dorm last night?" I froze, unsure how to respond. Finally, I forced a lie. "Great idea. I stayed in the lab all night." There was silence on the other end for a long time. Finally, Forrest's slow, husky voice came through. "Last night, an estrus omega showed up in our dorm. Do you know who it was?" I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms, forcing out a shaky laugh. "Haha, how would I know? It couldn't have been me, right? You know I'm a beta." Before he could reply, I hastily hung up. If I didn't, I knew I might start crying over the phone. My phone buzzed again, but I no longer had the courage to answer. I sank to the ground on the busy campus path. Tears poured down like a flood. My body ached from last night, but I knew it was over. Forrest hated omegas, and I had shifted into one. Whether that was lucky or unlucky, I didn't know. Forrest had no idea the person from last night was me. I wiped my tears and tried to reassure myself. If I could keep my transformation a secret, maybe I could still remain his friend. Enzo listened in stunned silence, his mouth forming a perfect O. Then he wore that hesitant expression again before his eyes lit up, and he suddenly laughed loudly. "Haha, Griffin, I've got your back." He opened his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. "You want to hide it from him, right? I'll help you black out the dorm cameras." Enzo was a computer genius at Q University, fast-tracked from the youth program. He kept typing while winking playfully at me. "Griffin, since you and him are impossible, maybe you should consider me instead." Seeing I didn't respond, he pretended to sulk. "You're not against Omega-Omega relationships, are you?" I suddenly remembered that little Omega had confessed to me before. Before I could react, Enzo gave me a big hug. "I know your heart belongs to someone else. I was just joking. And I haven't liked you for a long time anyway. Griffin, don't overthink it. Cry if you need to." He patted my back, releasing calming omega pheromones. I finally let go, burying my face against him and crying softly. By the time I pulled myself together and returned to school, it was already afternoon. Unexpectedly, the door to dorm 435 was wide open. Several uniformed men were moving mattresses and cabinets out. A few masked people were spraying disinfectant. Forrest, who should have been in the dorm, was nowhere to be seen. Only the sound of running water came from the bathroom. I walked in, and a uniformed worker explained. "Forrest asked us to do a full disinfection and replace all bedding and clothes." Forrest really did hate omegas, so much that he wanted everything in the dorm replaced. I nervously picked at the hangnail on my thumb. Good thing I'd kept last night a secret. The workers had left a long time ago, but the bathroom water still ran. I knocked, but there was no response. Worried, I pushed the door open. Forrest stood with his back to me under the shower, silent. His pale back was tense like a drawn bow. The entire bathroom had no warmth at all. "Forrest." I rushed over and grabbed his arm, but my fingers touched icy skin. In the chilly season, Forrest was actually taking a cold shower. "Forrest, you crazy guy." I muttered a curse under my breath and quickly guided the shivering Forrest out of the bathroom. "I'm not clean anymore." His voice was choked with sobs. My heart skipped a beat as I turned, but the tall figure behind me pulled me into a tight embrace. "Don't look. Please. Don't look at me." His wet hair brushed against my neck. He buried his face in my shoulder, crying so hard he could barely breathe. I can't get clean, no matter what I do. I'm really dirty. I'm not clean anymore. Would you still want me? I spent a long time soothing Forrest. His emotions finally calmed a bit, but he still wouldn't let go, clinging to me as we walked out of the bathroom like conjoined twins. After finally getting the 1.90 m alpha into bed, he still sobbed and grabbed my sleeve, insisting I lie next to him. I reluctantly climbed onto the bed. The cramped space forced us to press tightly against each other. Suddenly, Forrest furrowed his brow, sniffing me seriously, his handsome face darkening. Why do you smell like an omega? I thought maybe my own pheromones had leaked, and nervously tried to scoot aside. You must be mistaken. Impossible, he said, sitting up excitedly. And I've never seen these clothes on you before. Like a little dog, he buried himself against me, sniffing everywhere, then ground his teeth and muttered a name. Enzo. I sighed in relief and explained. I'd borrowed Enzo's clothes. What did you two even do that you needed to borrow clothes? Forrest's voice shot up. I thought you rejected that kid. Was he pestering you? I frowned, telling him not to jump to conclusions. I don't care. Omegas are trouble. Stay away from him. What if I was an omega? I pressed my lips together, holding back the bitterness, and tried to hint carefully. Forrest, being an omega is just a gender. You shouldn't judge someone's character based on that. Forrest resisted my words strongly. Why are you defending that omega? I said it. Omegas aren't good for anything. I just hate omegas. Okay. I sighed. As someone who grew up with him, I knew exactly how much Forrest hated omegas. When we were kids, during a family dinner, Forrest's mom had joked about him marrying an omega. Young Forrest had leapt up in anger, declaring he'd rather be castrated than marry an omega. It wasn't just omegas. Forrest even despised the stereotypical, ideal alpha traits. After shifting into an alpha himself, he'd often said, I wish I were a beta like you. Forrest saw both alphas and omegas as creatures driven by pheromones. So every time an omega confessed to him, he would use harsh words that made them cry. Every time, I was the one handing tissues to the heartbroken omegas. Forrest hated that, but I told him, Forrest, there's nothing wrong with liking someone. I liked Forrest. That secret had lived inside me for 6 years, woven into my very being. I had even taken pride in being a beta, until last night. Everything that happened was like a slap to my face, waking me from unrealistic dreams. I sent SA a message. Forget the ring I booked last month. Do whatever you want with it. Sorry. Scrolling through the chat, I stared at the couple rings we had designed together for a long time. My chest ached. I had planned to confess to Forrest when I got the rings. Now it felt like the outcome was already decided. Since then, Forrest had become even clingier. Following me to class was one thing, but even to the bathroom, when he pulled down his pants, he still peeked at me. Why is this pink? I finally snapped. Go away. While I was distracted by this boundary-crossing alpha, Enzo suddenly forwarded me an article on omega physiology. Then, out of the blue, he messaged, You guys use protection, right? I instinctively wanted to reply that betas can't get pregnant, but then I realized I had already shifted into an omega again. I freaked out, and so did Enzo. He told me to buy an omega pregnancy test immediately and promised to go with me to the hospital another day. Who are you chatting with that you're not even watching where you're going? Forrest looked up at me like a neglected puppy. I didn't have time to deal with him, so I grabbed an excuse and slipped away. Fearing running into someone I knew, I ran down another street, bought the test in secret, stuffed it into my pocket, and snuck back to the dorm. Then I ran straight into Forrest, standing guard at the door. I forced myself not to turn and leave. Why are you standing at the door like some doorman? I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but Forrest didn't look happy. Forgot my keys. I swallowed nervously, then opened the door under his burning gaze. But no sooner had I stepped in than he grabbed my wrist and pinned me against the door. What guilty thing are you hiding? And why are you avoiding me? I felt guilty and tried to bluff my way out. Humph. You think staying silent will save you? Forrest's left hand tickled me while his right hand snatched into my pocket. No, I couldn't stop him. Only watched as he raised the little box with an infuriating smirk. Let me see what treasure you're hiding. The next second, his smile froze. Forrest read the words on the package in disbelief. Omega pregnancy test? Shame and anger surged, and I punched him, my embarrassment peaking. What the hell are you doing? Give it back. Forrest grunted, taking the punch, but still refused to let go. Why would a beta buy this? Did you get an omega pregnant? He shot, faster and faster, his face darkening. Did you sleep with an omega? Forrest yanked open my hoodie. My face burned instantly. I bruise easily, and my chest still bore fresh red marks, traces left by this damn alpha. But he didn't remember it. He stared at the marks, eyes blazing red. Who? Who did you sleep with? Enzo. I always thought something was off between you and that omega. You've been glued to your phone these days, chatting with him, right? Did you do it? Smack. Seeing him getting more absurd, even dragging an innocent person into it, I slapped him in desperation. Forrest, what does Enzo have to do with this? Forrest covered his face, teary-eyed, looking at me as if the world had wronged him. My palm tingled, and I felt a twinge of regret. I shouldn't have resorted to violence. I wanted him to drop his hands so I could explain, but couldn't find the words. Forrest's eyes were full of heartbreak. He didn't yell anymore, and the room fell into an icy silence. My regret ballooned. I opened my mouth to apologize, but he ran off, hiding his face. I was about to chase after him when my phone buzzed. I picked it up. Enzo was on the line, sounding frantic. Did you test yet? Not yet, I replied. Ah, you're killing me with worry. Did you even read the article I sent? During the heat phase, pregnancy is really easy. My face flushed, and I was about to reply when he interrupted again, hurriedly. Forget it. That test isn't 100% reliable anyway. I've scheduled a checkup for you. Just come to the hospital now. I followed Enzo in a rush and got the checkup done. While waiting in line for the results, Enzo tilted his head, asking, Griffin, if it turns out you're pregnant, what will you do? I shook my head. I haven't thought that far. I touched my lower belly. My emotions tangled. Not long ago, I was a beta, nearly impossible to get pregnant. And now, there might be a tiny embryo inside me. 10 minutes later, I sat in the doctor's office, anxiously waiting for the verdict. When the doctor confirmed there were no signs of pregnancy, Enzo let out a long sigh of relief. But I couldn't help feeling an unexplainable sense of loss. The doctor, pushing his glasses up, explained with a smile, betas who shift into omegas aren't that easy to get pregnant. Especially for those like you, with weaker shifts, low pheromones, and narrower reproductive canals than a typical omega. If you ever want to conceive, your alpha will just have to go deeper. The doctor even made a cheering gesture. My face burned instantly. I stammered out a nod. That night, I bought a blood circulation cream and brought it back to the dorm. I wanted to put some on Forrest's face. After all, he cared most about his handsome looks. But I waited until 1 a.m., and he still hadn't returned. It was his first night out. I lay alone in bed, thinking, he must be really angry this time. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, picking up my phone again and again, but never pressing the call button. Wasn't I supposed to be avoiding Forrest anyway? Fine. Let's slowly drift apart. Maybe that's for the best. The next morning, the first thing I did upon opening my eyes was look at Forrest's bed. Neat. Just like last night. So he really hadn't come back. My mood plummeted. Expressionless. I went to brush my teeth and noticed a few dripping clothes hanging on the balcony. I grabbed my phone and saw a message from Forrest at 6:30 a.m. It was a cute cartoon rabbit, pitifully raising a fluttering white flag. I couldn't help but smile. I cheekily sent him a Dragon's Delight sticker in return. He immediately replied with a Your Majesty. Thanks for your grace. I laughed aloud but quickly calmed down. Forrest was really good. To stay by his side, I had to hide my omega identity. I needed to avoid him. During the morning lecture, Forrest, as usual, saved me a seat. We sat together, tacitly avoiding mention of yesterday's argument. I breathed a sigh of relief. Good, Let's keep this distance. But once class ended, he enthusiastically draped an arm over me. The restaurant downtown got your favorite East Star grouper. Want to try it for lunch? I remembered to avoid him. Subtly, I waved his hand away. Another time. The lab's busy. I have to go. He followed. Persistent. Then should we go eat at the cafeteria? My senior is pushing me. I feigned checking a message, avoiding his gaze. You go ahead. I'll just grab delivery when I'm done. You still have to eat. How about I pack something for you? Forrest followed me all the way to the lab entrance. Q University's biology building required fingerprint access. The only place Forrest couldn't sneak in. I mouthed a "don't worry" gesture through the glass and nervously slipped inside. That afternoon, I deliberately ignored Forrest's intermittent messages. But my senior excitedly commented, "Your rich friend is thoughtful. He just messaged asking if we're busy. Wants to get us something nice to eat." Right, Forrest had added all my lab mates' contacts. I almost got caught. I quickly asked my senior and senior sister to cover for me. If Forrest asks, tell him the lab's been super busy lately. Especially me. She teased. Oh, a little couple fight. I forced an embarrassed smile. We're just friends. Sure. Your friend who walks you to class every day. They laughed but agreed to help lie. I opened Forrest's chat. 13 unread notifications. Cafeteria rice photo. Ugh. Eating alone isn't fun without you here. Cat stretching photo. This tabby is so pretty. You always wanted both a cat and a dog. How about we get this tabby later? I scrolled down, and my phone buzzed again. Your Majesty, are you almost done? I'll come pick you up. I quickly replied. No need. Lab's super busy. I'll probably stay overnight tonight. This time, Forrest didn't respond immediately. After a long pause, he slowly replied. Okay. My strategy was simple, minimize time together. We used to be like conjoined twins. My Omega identity would inevitably be exposed. Now, using lab work as an excuse, I left early and returned late every day. Our time together dropped drastically. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, except Forrest's scowl grew darker by the day. I thought I was safe. But that day, while changing in the dorm, Forrest suddenly came back. The moment he entered, he waved his arms like a fan. Why does the dorm smell like an Omega? I panicked and opened the window. Is it that strong? He furrowed his brows so tightly I thought he could crush 2 flies. Yes, a very strong Omega smell. My heart raced. I'd been careful with the inhibitor. How could he smell me? Was this alpha's nose supernatural? Forrest sniffed the air carefully. You're a beta, so you can't smell it. Some AOs are careless and leave scent everywhere. He stepped closer, releasing alpha pheromones that surrounded me. But there's still a foreign Omega scent. Who did you see today? Come closer so I can sniff. I jumped back, startled by the massive pheromone release. Who is being careless here? Forrest thought I couldn't detect pheromones, so he freely surrounded me with his alpha scent. My face turned crimson. The back of my neck heated up, and a wave of warmth surged to my forehead. I shoved him away and bolted out the door in a panic. I paced around the empty grove 4 times before finally dispersing the scent lingering on me. Only then did my chaotic thoughts start to clear. No, this wasn't going to work. The dorm was private space, and if Forrest insisted on releasing alpha pheromones there was nothing I could do. Besides, in Forrest's eyes, I was just a beta. Betas couldn't detect pheromones. How could I warn him to stop releasing them in the dorm? I paced 2 more laps in the grove, anxiety gnawing at me. Finally, I made a decision. I was going to move out. Forrest would never agree, so I planned to act first and explain later. That very night, I submitted the off-campus housing application. The process moved quickly, and within a few days the counselor asked me to return my dorm key. To avoid Forrest, I made sure to go during a time he had class. But as soon as I stepped outside, a shadow appeared behind me like a ghost. The tall figure blocked me completely. I spun around and felt large hands pin me against the wall at my waist. It was Forrest, who should have been in class. His dark eyes bored straight into mine. What did I do wrong to make you keep avoiding me? I had no choice but to lie. I'm not avoiding you. I've just been really busy lately. Busy? Forrest sneered. Busy enough to abandon a dorm closer to the lab? Busy enough to move off campus? He slammed a fist against the wall in anger. If it weren't for that damn new roommate showing up, you'd still be hiding things from me. His chest heaved with furious breaths. Then he raised a hand to cover his eyes, his voice choking. Why, what did I do wrong? When he looked up again, tears streamed down his face. All these years we've been together, and yet even an Omega comes before me? My heart ached as I reached out to wipe his tears. There's no Omega. You're imagining things. But he turned his face away from my hand, crying harder. Then what about that Omega pregnancy test? It's all a misunderstanding. Nothing happened. I tried to reassure him. He still didn't believe me. His trembling voice mixed with sobs. Then how do you explain the marks on your body? Don't try to lie to me. I'm not stupid. Anyone could tell what those are. One lie required countless others to cover it. My nose burned, but I forced a nonchalant expression. If you know, why ask? We're adults. Handling biological needs is normal. Hey, put me down. Before I could react, Forrest scooped me onto his shoulder. Ignoring my struggles, he threw me onto the dorm bed and pinned me down. His tear-stained eyes locked onto mine like prey. I can help with your needs too. He lowered his head, biting my belt with that aggressive, beautiful face. I scrambled to push him away, only to touch a face wet with tears. Was he crying again? Why can't I do it? Forrest's tears fell one by one. Do you think I'm dirty, and that's why you don't want me? His hoarse voice shattered me. Please, don't hate me. I washed for so long, I really am clean. In the middle of speaking, his chin brushed against my sensitive spot. I let out a sharp, involuntary sound. Forrest felt the reaction, a flash of satisfaction crossing his face. I knew you weren't indifferent to me. His hot breath brushed my exposed skin. My scalp tingled, and I finally let out a crying sound through my clenched teeth. Forrest, you idiot. Once I cried out, Forrest froze, unsure what to do. But my tears wouldn't stop. All the stress, anxiety, and sorrow from recent days poured out at once. I sobbed into the blankets, gasping for air. Forrest knelt beside me, flustered, cautiously patting my back. Eventually, he carefully wrapped me in the blankets, holding me close, his calming pheromones enveloping me. I felt like I was soaked in warm water, comfortable and safe. I slowly began to calm down, but Forrest's breathing became rapid. I turned to look and felt something hard brushing my waist. I stared at him in shock. No, I'm not a pervert, he said, red-faced, covering his nose. I don't know why, but it smells so good. Why is it so good in here? I widened my eyes, realizing I had been unconsciously releasing omega pheromones. The two scents in the room had already merged together, blending seamlessly. I finally processed it, albeit a moment too late. I was in heat. Forrest noticed too, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. The scent, it's coming from you. You're an omega? My hair stood on end, and my first instinct was to run. But I hadn't taken 2 steps before he grabbed my ankle and pulled me back. I glared at him, and he instantly let go as if burned. The alpha's face glistened with sweat, struggling between desire and restraint. Stay calm. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Overcome by the alpha pheromones, I lay flushed on the bed. He moved over me, lifting the covers. My hands clutched his hair, biting my lip to suppress my breath. Be good. Don't bite yourself, the alpha whispered. Finally, a sob escaped my throat. Don't talk with your mouth full. It feels strange. After I finished, Forrest went to the bathroom to brush his teeth. I collapsed onto the bed alone, hiding my face in shame. After a while, I heard water trickling from the bathroom again. Was he showering again? I froze for a moment. Then it hit me, and my face burned red all over. I sat on the bed, on pins and needles, for half an hour. Eventually, my racing heartbeat started to calm down, but Forrest still didn't come out. Was he avoiding facing me? My heart sank a little. For Forrest, seeing his childhood playmate turn into the omega he hated most must have been deeply uncomfortable. And maybe he realized that the omega he had been with that night was me. I remembered how frantically he had washed in the bathroom, and anxiously bit my nails. All of this was my fault, suddenly differentiating into an omega in the dorm, releasing pheromones that triggered Forrest's heat. That's why things between us had become so awkward. I sat on the bed, confused. What was to become of our friendship? Built over more than a decade? I stood up on tiptoe and quietly left the dorm. Since Forrest seemed too embarrassed to speak harshly to me, I'd be sensible and leave quietly on my own. I arrived at the apartment I rented off campus. Suddenly, I got a video call from my parents, who had been traveling on a cruise for over a month. My omega father, face glowing with happiness, leaned against my sunglasses-wearing mother. "Where are you? Doesn't look like a dorm." I told them I was living off campus. Immediately, my dad frowned. "Why aren't you staying on campus? It's not safe to rent alone." Yeah. Why not have Forrest stay with you?" My mom chimed in, laughing. I froze. My parents had always been hands-off. I grew up eating meals at Forrest's house. Now, after all these years, they suddenly worried about my safety. "Your dad's worried. Give Mom the address." I gave the address. And then click, they hung up. Baffling. I scratched my head and ordered some takeout. Less than 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Delivery was really fast in the west of the city. I opened the door, puzzled, and saw Forrest, out of breath, standing there. I instinctively tried to close the door, but a hand reached out to stop it. I watched in shock as the hand got pinched by the door, leaving a red mark on the knuckles. Forrest gasped from the pain, but refused to let go. "Forrest, are you out of your mind?" I hurriedly opened the door fully, concerned about his hand, but before I could say anything, he pulled me into a tight hug. "I came out of the bathroom and couldn't find you. I was scared to death." His alpha pheromones were tinged with anxiety. He held me for a long while before gripping my shoulders, lifting his head, and staring at me intently. "I've been thinking, the omega that went into heat in the dorm that night, that was you, wasn't it?" Forrest's tone left no room for denial. I could only hang my head in guilt and admit it. A faint blush appeared on his face. He clenched a fist over his mouth, coughed lightly, and then asked, matter-of-factly, "You took my precious first time, and then ran off. You don't want to take responsibility, do you?" Wait, responsibility? I hadn't expected Forrest to ask that. I remembered how he had reacted, as if his world had ended, after being tainted. Of course, Forrest was a conservative alpha. "You're not really saying you won't take responsibility, are you? Say something." He shook my shoulders hard. I pushed him away. "Aren't you supposed to hate omegas? You said you'd never succumb to pheromones. So now I don't hate omegas anymore. What's wrong with that?" Huh. I stared at the alpha performing a dramatic face change right before my eyes. His previous disgust toward omegas had been genuine. Had he lost his mind? "You really won't take responsibility?" Forrest clutched his chest, pretending to be heartbroken. "If you won't, then I'll have to pursue you." "Wait, pursue me?" Caught off guard. I still hadn't processed it when Forrest continued muttering, "I'm going to prepare until you agree to take responsibility. Just wait for my pursuit." Then, he planted a quick kiss on my cheek and dashed off. I was left stunned, unable to process what had just happened. Before I could even think, Forrest began an all-out pursuit. He showed up at my door to help with chores, amid teasing from my senior classmates. He came to the lab with flowers, rain or shine. He even tried cooking in my rented apartment. They say cooking alphas are the most charming. Do you think I'm handsome? I couldn't help laughing at him posing with a spatula. Handsome, handsome, handsome. After dinner, we walked in the neighborhood. Forrest complimented the children playing by the roadside. "Kids are just too cute." I got goosebumps. "Aren't you the one who hated kids?" He explained solemnly. "That was then. This is now." He even posted publicly on social media. "I'm Forrest, and I officially announced that I now like omegas." Everyone flooded the comments with question marks. Some friends wrote, "Did graduate school finally drive you insane?" Only when Forrest was reluctantly taken to a summit in a neighboring city by his advisor did I finally get a small break from his relentless pursuit. I met Enzo at the campus cafe. I was genuinely happy that Forrest was pursuing me. But alongside the happiness, I felt it was fragile, like thin ice on a spring branch that could vanish under sunlight. After all, Forrest had genuinely hated omegas before. I confessed everything to Enzo, seeking advice. When I looked up, Enzo was scrolling through social media with a resigned expression, muttering. He finally stopped pretending. I thought I misheard. What did you say? I didn't catch that. Enzo sighed, finally speaking. Nothing. I think Forrest is sincere with you. You can accept him. My face heated. Really? Yes. Enzo smiled in relief. Griffin, I wish you happiness. As soon as I got back to my apartment, a figure lunged at me, wrapping me in a tight embrace. I'm so stupid. Forrest's voice choked with emotion. I'm the dumbest, most clueless alpha in the world. I quickly pulled his face out of my chest. Why are you crying again? Forrest wiped his tears angrily and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a pair of sparkling silver rings. Carefully, he placed the rings in his palm and asked in a trembling voice. So you like me too? My eyes heated up. I looked at the ring I had designed myself, once cherished, then abandoned in disappointment, now shining brilliantly in the hands of the one I loved. It was like seeing Forrest's heart sparkle. Tears finally fell. Yes, I've liked you for a long time. You idiot. Before I could finish, Forrest kissed me. In the tangled rhythm of our breaths, we tasted each other's salty tears. When the kiss ended, Forrest pressed his forehead against mine. Our fingers intertwined intimately. I've liked you for so long, since the first time I saw you. I've liked you for so long. Liked you until I felt like I'd go crazy. Am I dreaming? I feel like the happiest person in the world right now. I wiped my tears and smiled. You fool. Me too. Hearing that I had liked him secretly since sophomore year. Forrest looked radiant with joy, holding me and kissing me endlessly. My tongue went numb from his suction. When I finally managed to push him away, he leaned close to my ear with a serious expression. Do you know we've already lost 6 years? Forrest started counting on his fingers, meticulously calculating in front of me. If things had gone smoothly, we should have done this on our 18th birthday. But now it's been delayed until 24. Even at the bare minimum of twice a week. Rounding down, we've missed at least 630 times. We have to make up for that. He lifted me into his arms, laughing softly in my ear. Let's start by making up 7 times tonight. Okay. It wasn't until the next afternoon that I slowly woke from the dreamlike haze. Forrest sat next to me, happily scrolling on his phone. I leaned over and saw that he had already announced our relationship to everyone. All our friends were being shown the news. Hey, you there? Nothing much. Just wanted to tell you a love story. Yes, the protagonists are me and Griffin. We're together. Thanks for the wishes. We'll be together forever. Because my partner loves me so much. I shook my head, smiling. Seeing Forrest so unabashedly happy made me want to be brave too. I dialed my mom. Hi, Mom. I want to tell you something. I hesitated, then finally said it boldly. Forrest and I are together. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then my mom's surprised voice. Weren't you already together? I was the one shocked this time. Huh. She continued. Weren't you two dating back in high school? Forrest's mom was worried it would affect your studies. But I told her if your grades didn't drop. It was fine. I hung up, stunned, and saw Forrest on the balcony, probably talking to his parents as well. His voice carried faintly on the wind, saying something about getting married right after graduation. The sunlight shone on Forrest's radiant, joyful face. Happiness, at this moment, was finally within reach.